Welcome to the Grand Prix Project podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Grand Prix Project. This is the Canadian Grand Prix review with me, your host Andre, and the big bro Thanos.
What's happening, bro? What's happening? You good?
Yeah, man. What's good?
The usual. Yeah, another weekend, another race review. So let's just dive straight into it. You know what I mean? Because I know you're probably pressed for time at the moment.
That work. It's the only time I got this week to record, but we still got to get it out.
Yep.
First thing, George springs a surprise, man. No one saw that Mercedes pole coming, right?
No.
Pull it out the bag.
Yeah, I think maybe a second row was possibly on for them this weekend, but to put it on pole using also the medium tire, which confused the whole entire weekend because people were making it into Q3 on medium tires. George, Kimi, and Alonso. That mix of medium and hard tires into Q3 is kind of like unusual. I think, if I remember correctly, I think the last time I remember I see something like that where the middle of the range tire was faster than the actual softest compound was Portimao in 2020, where Lewis actually qualified on pole using the medium tire, but he had to do multiple laps to get the tires into the right operating wind, and that was more a temperature thing rather than anything else. So, Mercedes came again, and after the last 3 races they've had, where they've pretty much been nowhere, because in the last 3 races they've only scored points in one of those 3 races. Kimi didn't score in the triple header. Kimi didn't score any points in the triple header. George scored points in... Where did he score points? I think it... what was the triple header again? It was...
I honestly don't remember what was the triple header,
let me just check, because I can't remember what it was. So the triple header was... where is it? The triple header was Imola, Monaco, and Spain. And George only scored in 2 of those races. He scored in Imola, and he scored a 4th place in Spain. Kimi didn't score in any of those 3 races as well. So they were coming in pretty much on the back foot. But the way they bounced back and took that pole position, as well as Kimi having his best starting position of the year so far, which is P4 as well. Hats off to them. They got the job done and did the business.
Yeah, coming off those horrible weekends, that's a good bounce back, a win and a podium.
Mm-hmm. And the win, and the thing about the George win as well, he didn't look like he was ever going to lose that race. You know what I mean? At the start of the race, Max did keep him honest for a couple laps, but then after that, he gradually kind of just drove away, built himself a good enough to, I believe at one point the lead got to about 4 seconds, I think it was, over Max. So that tells you he was in a good place with the car. And Kimi, had a good race himself. Jumped championship leader Piastri after the first corner. He passed him. He pulled alongside him going into turn 1 and 2, and then took the position going into the 3-4 chicane, where Charles put it in the wall in practice, and also the infamous incident with Lewis and Seb in 2019. And he himself, held himself, showed himself to good stead as well, because again, he resisted the efforts from the McLarens, held his nerve, which it probably would have lost. Probably would have lost that position if the race had what happened later transpired, which we're going to talk about next, didn't happen. But at the same time, he didn't kept,
He
kept
did
it
what he was
clean.
supposed to do. He kept it
Yeah,
on the track.
kept it clean, kept it on the track, and drove a really good, mature race for his first podium of his F1 career. And that now makes him the third youngest driver to have
Yeah.
ever podium in Formula One behind Stroll and Max. So, kudos to him. And I think in some ways, he's starting to show why Mercedes thought that highly of him. And
Yeah,
he's slowly,
we've been know that from the start. He's been showing that. It's just
yeah,
that his luck just wasn't.
yeah.
That's not now,
And
to
he's
be honest.
starting to, and you have to remember, he has never driven this track before. It's the
Yeah,
first time
so
he's driven this track. Normally, some of the tracks he's driven um, in Europe, he did them in F2, but this was
F
not
two
one
doesn't
of them.
come this F two doesn't come this side of the world.
No, uh, no, it doesn't actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
so kudos to George, Mercedes. George, lived up to, again, just to reiterate, retrace my steps. George lived up to his Mr. Saturday um, nickname on Saturday again. Only man to do a sub 1 minute 11 time. Did a 110.8. The only one to do that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a new lap record, but I'd have to double check that. So Mercedes, again, and Mercedes as a team, they're a formidable team once they get everything right. And, let's see what happens. I think there could be more wins for them as the season progresses. So let's see.
yeah. All right, man. Let's see if Mercedes could carry that through the rest of the season, or if it was just track specific. 'Cause
Yeah,
this
that's
tour is.
another thing as well, because they've always gone well here. Because if you go back to, I think even in 22, I think they podium here last year as well, because George took pole last year, and he podium here as well last year. I think he got second or third. I think he got third last year, past Lewis. On I think he got third last year. Let me just double check just to be certain. So Mercedes he got third last year. So Mercedes has tended to go well at this track. So let's see if and again, the whole idea of it being temperature, whatever it is, and specific. I don't think that was the case this weekend, because whilst the ambient air temperature wasn't that high, the track temp was like 50. And that's baking hot. And I think Mercedes, whenever they get into that sort of temperature range, that's when they normally struggle. But you didn't see that this weekend. So, but again, let's see what happens in the next one, which is next weekend. Where's that? Whatever is the next weekend? Oh God, next weekend is. Oh, where's the next weekend? How can I not remember this? They're in Austria. Yes, that's where it is. In Austria next weekend, which
All
is
right.
basically a back to back with Silverstone.
All right, let's see how that goes.
Hmm.
Yeah, Lando Piastri. Lando did say there's going to be a point this season where they're going to come together. He spoke of it. It happened. Power is in the tongue.
Yep, spoke
Right,
it into
and
existence, and
yeah,
and to be and it hurt. That coming together hurt him the most, because he ended up DNFing from the race. Oscar now has went in with a 10-point lead. He's now leading by 22 points. And with Max finish second, I think he lost. Lando lost 18 points to Max, so the gap to Max and Lando now is 21 points. It was previously 21 and 18. That's 39. It was previously 39, so he lost 21 points. No, 18 points to Max as well. Which in a situation like this, you don't want to be giving away points, especially when you're having issues on a Saturday, which then makes it your weekend, your Sunday's far more difficult than you need it to be. So, and again, there was we've heard conversation. We were in the space after the race, and people were saying, McLaren should have issued team orders and tell them not to race, etc. And I'm like, nah, I don't think that would have been a fair thing for either driver, given that we're not even halfway through the season yet, and the gap between them is only 10 points. If it was a situation whereby Max was probably closer in the championship, it was the closing end of the season, and Max was close, much closer in the championship, then you're going to say, well, I'm going to have to issue team orders here because, I don't want to give away points. And this goes back to something you said couple of the episodes ago, that McLaren could race themselves out of a championship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because even though it's early in the season, right? When you find yourself in battle in that type of situation, right? So now you gotta ask yourself, all right, then what's the difference between them if Lando had passed Piastri? How many points would have that swing?
Well, here's the thing and I think here's why Oscar, it wouldn't have been a good thing to do, because I think if Lando had gotten past Oscar maybe 1 or 2 laps prior to the incident, he would have gotten Kimi. I don't think Kimi would have finished on the podium, because I think Kimi was probably struggling on that last stint on his tires. Plus, Lando had a tire offset to Kimi of, I believe, about 7 laps, I think it was. So, and if you look at the pace-wise, I think Lando was probably the quicker of the 2 drivers in the race. And if he had definitely gotten past Oscar, then he would have gotten Kimi. So rather than Oscar losing 2 points to Lando, he'd have actually lost 5, because Lando would have finished 3rd, and it's very likely he would have finished 5th, which is 10 points. So his lead would have been halved.
I've been hearing this. I hear it a lot of time. Lando is the fastest in the race. And I'm not seeing it. Right?
No, well,
maybe at that point in the race, because of the how many he had a tire offset to Oscar like with 2 laps.
Who? Lando? Yeah, I believe so. I believe it's 1 or 2 laps. So there wasn't really that much difference in it. But if you look on the stint, I mean, because we have to also caveat that, because when Lando came out, he was about 4.5 seconds behind Oscar. And it's that battle with Kimi that basically brought Lando back into contention for that position. But either way, he still got there. And I think, I know a lot of people gave him stick for the incident that the coming together between the 2 of them, but I can see what he was trying to do. And I think if Oscar had moved a meter to his right before Lando got there, he would have actually taken that corner, because he was going for the inside. I think he just misjudged his closing speed, because on the run up to that last chicane, to come on the start-finish straight, Lando was literally ahead of Oscar. But what Oscar did was he braked late, and by braking late, he basically compromised, meant he was slower going into the corner than Lando. And he had a tighter entry to the corner, so he kind of like 90-degree the corner, whilst Lando had a more conventional line. And so when he came out, he had the run on him. And, even though they both had DRS, that slow entry and slow exit from Oscar meant, but...
You remember what we spoke about, Lando and his decision-making? You said it in your space, and you said at some point we're saying that his decisiveness isn't there in his racecraft. Once again, he proved why people say that about him, right?
Yeah,
I think even Nico Rosberg was saying it about him. There's a lot of pro people who are saying like, nah, this is crazy. Because this is where my issue is. Even though, and this is once again, when I say his decision making, he makes the wrong decisions. Because
not all the time.
Going for such a move, you go against, if you're up against a Max, you take that risk. You don't take that risk against your teammate.
But why not?
So once again, because the risk versus the reward, we've seen that, right? If you're going to really be, If
But
you're
the
gonna
same
take
risk
those risks,
versus yeah, but
no,
it's
because
just
he could have wiped out his teammate, and that's
yeah,
the issue, right?
but how would it? But then if he wipes out Max, how is that different?
Would you rather wipe out another teammate, or would you rather wipe
Yeah,
out your teammate
you'd
if you're
rather
gonna
not
wipe
wipe.
out someone?
You'd rather not wipe out anybody.
But if it's gonna be, the thing is with
Yeah,
Lando, yeah. So
you'd
in
rather
my thing,
the
I'm like, bro,
opponent.
once again, you made the wrong decision. You made such a decisive decision against your teammate, and a lot of time when he was racing Max, he wasn't doing it, and this is where people look at him like, bro, like, where's your head at? You
But
need to. Where's your head at, Lando?
But isn't that is it counterintuitive is the word I want to use, because we argue, and again, someone I did mention a posted a tweet about saying, whilst the move didn't come off the way he wanted to, I can see what he was trying to do. I mean, he was when he went to his left, he felt like there was going to be enough space there, or Oscar would have moved to his right. And once Oscar moves to his right, because he had that momentum on him already, if Oscar moved to his right, Lando would have had the inside for that corner. So I can see where he was going. I think what he did was he misjudged his closing speed. And someone replied to me and said, well, and it goes back to what you're just saying about his decision making. We criticize him for not being decisive enough. And we criticize him when he tries to be decisive. Granted, it didn't work out. So, you're saying he's not aggressive. But the one time he went, because I think he raced.
The problem is he went that way against his teammate. When he was up
Yeah,
against Max, he wasn't doing it.
but again,
Not, bro. Like,
okay,
why would you? If you're
but
going
is
to
that
make such a move, you took it against your teammate. Like, that's the moment you'll be like, you know what? That's the moment where you're thinking, this is going to be a high risk maneuver, right? And this is the moment, you know what? Let me not do this because that's my teammate, and that's the thing, is he's not processing the situation, and that's what I said. He's not situationally aware. Lando is, right, and that's where he's falling short.
I don't agree with that, and here why I don't agree with that, because you're saying he's not aggressive with Max, but he went aggressive with his teammate. Would that not then mean it's a change in approach from him? Because the same way he wasn't aggressive.
Yes, it is, but the problem is, even the change in approach, part of what people are talking about, not just me, is that even that change in approach that you take, you made that decision at the wrong time because it's against your teammate.
No,
right?
Again, I don't agree. I'm trying to explain why I don't agree with that. Because again, it's the first time he has actually raced like somebody who wants to win the championship, right? Because, okay, he made an aggressive move into the hairpin on the same lap before they collide at the end of the lap, right? And that's what gave him the opportunity to try to at least try the move. Now, if he had spent the whole time remainder of those laps behind Oscar and not even try and make a move, we'd be on here saying, yo, why he didn't even try.
No one is not saying he shouldn't make a move. Where he made the move, it's probably the most riskiest move that he could have taken on that racetrack.
But again, I don't think it's the most riskiest part of the track, because of how Oscar exited that corner, that final chicane. He didn't have the momentum. He didn't carry the momentum into the corner, like I said. He braked too late, which meant he went deeper into the corner. So he had a more acute angle entering, and his exit speed was much lower, whereby Lando took the conventional entry exit at that corner. So he had the run on him, right? And Oscar didn't even use the normal racing line on that straight.
Doesn't matter.
Let me just hear me out. Just hear me out. Right? Lando looked at it and thought, well, you know what? The only way I'm going to pass is if I can only pass him going up on the inside. There's no way I'm going to pass him going around the outside. So what I'm going to do here is, all right, I'm going to move to my left, and because how the track is composed, you have that right king, so you're always going to come back to your right, to get that corner. Because if you carry on the trajectory that Oscar was going to go in, right, he's basically going to turn that corner into a 90-degree corner, right? Mm-hmm. So he's going to go in he's going to do like a block pass, right? So I think what Lando thought was when he went to his left was at some point Oscar's gonna have to move to his right. And once he moves to his right, that's his opportunity to just break later than he did. And basically then he would be the one doing the block pass if we're using MotoGP terms or superbike terms. He would not be the one who has the inside and he can do that block pass, right? Because the rule states once he has his front wheel marginally in line with the wing mirror or further ahead, the corner becomes his. So I think that's what he was calculating. But where it became a problem for him was he misjudged his closing speed. And I think that's what caused the accident. And I think it's unfair to say, his decision making, because again, if the move had worked off, no one would be saying, oh, his decision making was poor. We're only saying that because they came together, right? And I used the example to you in our space after when we said, look at the move that Oscar pulled on Lewis in Jeddah, right? It was where he pulled that move, right? Is somewhere where no one has ever pulled that overtaking move before. And in doing so, he also needed to go on the dirtier side of the track where all the discarded tire marbles were. So he could have gone on there and lost, and because it's dirty and you have all of that marble on his tires, he could have lost grip, whatever it is, and he could have hit the wall, boom, his race over. The reason why we said it was a fantastic move is because the move came off. And that's what we're doing here. We're saying Lando made a bad decision, and I'm saying, well, we only can say that because the move didn't come off. But if the move had come off, and again, that's the fine line between, because you said the Oscar move wasn't risky in Jeddah, and I said, no, it was a risky move.
No, I said it was risky, but it wasn't stupid.
But it was stupid as well. Risky and stupid, there's pretty much...
and Lando move was stupid.
No,
stupid.
No.
You realize that when you look into space, even the pros are saying Lando made a bad decision, right?
Look, my point, but the point,
the problem is with Lando because people are seeing enough sample size, be like, yo, this guy is this guy's a liability.
No, it's not, and I don't agree with that. And this is why I'm arguing my point, right?
How many races in are we?
10.
And how many mistakes have Lando made over the 10 races?
Again,
let's answer that question. How many mistakes overall?
He has made plenty, but those mistakes. Hold on, no. Hear me out, bro. He has made plenty mistakes, but those mistakes came in qualifying, not during the race. No. That's a different. No, it does. No, okay, hold on. Let me finish.
This one more time.
Let me finish.
Name me another top driver.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Let me explain myself.
Because these Lando excuses is not fine.
I'm not making an excuse for him. What I'm saying here is you're saying he makes a lot of mistakes. And I'm saying, yes, he's made mistakes, but his mistakes are generally on a Saturday.
Which affects you on a Sunday.
Let me finish. Let me just finish. He makes a lot of mistakes on a Saturday in qualifying over a qualifying lap. But when it comes to Sunday, on a race day, he's not making any mistakes. He's doing the right thing. He's recovering his position to get back up to where he's normally supposed to be. Because we saw it in Miami, we saw it in Spain. We saw places where he started out of position and he's recovered. His drive on a Sunday is generally good. No.
Yeah, go on.
Good. His drive on a Sunday is generally good. So when you say he makes a lot of mistakes, we have to be rather be more descriptive of what we're talking about, because these mistakes happen in qualifying over
which is costing him the championship.
Again, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the fact that he makes mistakes. We're not talking about what it costs him in the championship or it affects his championship. We're talking about mistakes.
So if we're not talking about what is the goal?
Just the point. Him. No, the point. What I'm trying to explain to you is, yes, he's made mistakes in qualifying. That's where on a Saturdays is his problem. Over a lap, he probably doesn't string the lap together. But on a Sunday, race day on a Sunday, he does the right thing. He makes
this. And why is that? Why do you think that is?
Why is what?
Because the moment that Red Bull or Mercedes, if Mercedes could keep what they got going on, like in Canada, the mistake that he's making, they become more costly. Because guess what? You won't be able to drive past them.
That's a different argument. That's a
No,
different.
it's
That's
the
a
same
different.
thing, bro,
No,
because you're
it's
missing that.
no. You're making.
Right.
You're confusing. You're conflating two different
No, I'm
things.
not. No,
You
it's not.
no.
It
Bro.
is not. Because you're not trying to get my point. The mistakes that he's making, right? Even though he's driving back through the field, right? The problem that's costing, by the time he gets to his back of his teammate, he ain't got no tires left. So he's not winning the race, okay?
That's a
So
different argument. You're talking.
we're talking about the mistakes. The mistakes they carry on. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
No, hear me out. We're talking about the incident in the main race where they came together, and you're saying he makes a lot of mistakes. Again, there's two different.
Overall, he makes a lot of mistakes.
Again,
It doesn't matter if it's in the race or
again, but that's the first. But
again.
Again, but if you look at his Sundays, this is the first Sunday, right? He has had an issue where he collided with his teammate,
which was coming.
Again, if you look at the previous 9 Sundays, the races where he has qualified badly on a Saturday, look at his drives on the Sunday. He recovers those positions perfectly fine. So when you say he makes a lot of mistakes, you have to be more precise with where you're talking, because the mistakes are made in qualifying on a Sunday, on a Saturday. That's different to what we're talking about here. We're talking about the incident that happened on a Sunday. So they're not the two same thing. They're different things.
They are
on Sunday in the main race, right? He made a miscalculation because he made a miscalculation, and it was a dumb miscalculation, and it created a problem. He took himself out of the race. That's the first miscalculation he's made on a Sunday.
Okay, so let me when you finish, because you're looking at this thing as just that incident. Lando has had it coming for the whole season.
No,
right?
But you can't say he had it coming for the whole season, because again, hear me out.
Are you listening to what I'm saying to you?
You can't,
because I want to really say my piece. So
you can't say what happened on Sunday was coming the whole entire season when you have 9 races on a Sunday, right? Where you saw no evidence of anything like that ever going to happen. The only mistakes you could have pointed Lando making up until that moment over the weekend was how he qualified. That's it. That's the only places mistakes were being made was in qualifying.
Just let me know when I've got the mic.
So I don't think the two things are the same.
They are the same, because ultimately, the only reason why Lando is making these drives back through the field is because he's got the car to do it, right? The moment. So yeah, because what you're not taking into consideration is that if once the Mercedes and the Red Bull come on song, which they are, especially they're going to come on song at some point, the mistakes that he makes on Saturday, he's not going to be second on the grid anymore. He's going to be probably 4th or 5th at best.
Yes, right? which we already agree on.
So when you're saying that, you can't say because he's making these mistakes in qualifying, it was only a matter of time because he was going to mess up on a Sunday, right? Because the guy is making mistakes. Doesn't matter if it's in qualifying. What we do know is that he's become mistake prone, right? Whether it's on Saturday or if it's on Sunday, it just finally came together on a Sunday. We knew it was going to happen at some point, right? So we cannot say because he's making the mistakes on Sunday and he's driving good. Yeah, you got the best car. You're supposed to drive good on a Sunday.
But right? You're also supposed to drive good on a Saturday.
Right? That's what I'm saying to you. So ultimately, he's making the mistakes on a Saturday, right? And my issue with Lando, which is what a lot of people are talking about, even the pros, Nico Rosberg, who's raced in F1, be like, yo, he's making a lot of mistakes. So it doesn't matter if it's on Saturday or if it's on Sunday. What we do know is that we got, how many, 10 races?
Yeah.
And we probably could find 7 mistakes as Lando.
Yeah, but if you look at those 7 mistakes, where you find those 7 mistakes,
right? It doesn't matter. No, it's a mistake. Let me ask this. Okay,
no, hold on.
You had your time. Let me talk. You were the one that said it, that Lando seems to be the fastest in the races, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you said?
Yeah.
But Oscar is the one that the race wins, right?
Yes.
So what that tells me that if Lando is the fastest of the 2 McLaren drivers, which I doubt it means that the mistakes that he's making on Saturdays is the reason why he's not winning the races. Because by the time he drives through the field, right, his teammate is in fresh air, right, he's only coming in second at best.
Mm-hmm.
So the mistakes that you talk about on Saturday, they're actually costing him massively in the championship.
But that's not what we're talking about.
Hold on. We're talking about mistakes, whether it's a race or not.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking
It's a
about we're talking about the incident on Sunday,
You
right?
know what this Lando situation look like? You see,
What?
if he wasn't making mistakes on Saturdays, I'm like, yo, this guy's mistake prone. It's only a matter of time. I would be like, you know what? I could see through that. But what it looks like, right? To me, this is how I see Lando. I see Lando as, and say for instance, like when you asked me the other day, how did when Oscar got beaten off the line by Kimi, why I did not say anything, or why I didn't give him much stick? I'm like, well, Kimi's not in the championship. Oscar seems to be picking his battles, right? What Lando reminds me of is two people that goes to court. One is a first offender, and one is gradually a petty thief, right? You're a petty thief, and so you keep getting off. It's not as dangerous until you go do a bank robbery. You go sit in front of the judge. You think the judge isn't going to look back on all these petty thieves, petty robberies that you did before? So you're gonna get a harsher sentence compared to the man that probably went on the bank robbery for the first time. He's got a clean record in Oscar, right? You know what? You're gonna get life in prison. Oscar, you're gonna get a 10-year sentence because this is your first of it. You don't make you. This is not you, but you over here, Mr. Lando, you've got a history of this, right? We've got 10 races and you got 6 or 7 instances. So now you made the big, okay, you're getting a longer sentence. That's how I look at both of them. Lando's and his mistakes is what we can come to see on Sunday.
Here's my thing.
Right.
Cool, fair enough. But my argument around this whole thing stands from, right? His Lando's mistakes up until Sunday has always been in qualifying. He made a mistake. Yep. He's always made mistakes in much of his qualifying runs, cost him grid positions, right? But when he comes on a Sunday, he races fairly. He makes decisive moves at the right time to get his position and recover his position. Sunday was the first time he's actually made the wrong decision in the race and it's cost him. So again, if you're going to use your analogy of your petty crime versus a first-time offender, he's a first-time offender in the main race because that's what we're looking at here. We're not looking at the qualifying.
You're looking at that.
But why we
everyone else is because everyone else in the F1 sphere is looking at Lando over the race weekend. You can't just because the Sunday is just the final. So it's just like football. You win the game in practice during the week, right? That's where you probably work the hardest to prepare for the game. It's the same thing. You cannot look at Lando and just look at Sunday. You have to look at the whole race weekends. The race weekend, Sunday's not it's not the only thing you got to look at. You got to look at from practice starts on Friday, right, to qualifying to the race. And as we know, you make a mistake in qualifying, you qualify bad. Now you got to work on the race on Sunday, right?
But not
so the whole F1 sphere is looking at that. Even with what happened Sunday, is his first race accident, but everyone is looking like, all right then, yeah, this is not good. This is not good. This guy's making a lot of mistakes.
Look, I'm looking at the incident as a standalone incident. I'm not worried about. Just say me, I'm not worried about the qualifying thing because the qualifying thing is a qualifying thing. People can make mistakes in qualifying. That's fine. I'm looking at this incident as a standalone incident. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. We say he's not decisive enough. He's not aggressive enough, right? And as the person who commented on my tweet pointed out, NPK, she pointed out, I think in this regard, we can kind of like, I'm willing to be like, okay, you crash, whatever, cool. You're going to have to eat that one. But I can see what you were doing. You finally realize you're racing for a championship and you were being aggressive. He was aggressive against his teammate at the hairpin because he was trailing him for how many laps and he couldn't pass him. And he just surprised him at that hairpin and he made an aggressive move. He made a decisive and an aggressive move, and it basically almost paid off. The end part, it didn't end the way he wanted, but I can see what he was thinking, and I can see what he was trying. And it's just one of them things. It didn't work. He's just gonna have to eat it.
Based on how he came over the it was
He said it was a stupid move. It was his fault, etc.
Yes, I was saying I personally think he was a bit frustrated. He got frustrated, and it led to what transpired. But as I said, He didn't do himself any favors, right? And he didn't. The criticism is super heavy now because when you look in the F1 sphere, like, yeah, he's getting it, boy. As I said, hopefully he could recover from it. Hopefully it doesn't get in his psyche, right? Because you know it goes, right? If these things from the qualifying mistakes to now crashing in your teammate, because you know crashing in your teammate is different from crashing anywhere else or with anyone else, right?
Yeah.
It just carries a certain, like, hey, the cardinal sin, right? Even if it was a move that he thought was on, it just comes with the territory. You crashing your teammate. So the thing that you're probably gonna see moving forward, right, is because you know these meetings are gonna be different, right? Even though Zach is like, let them race, you know that Monday morning meeting is different.
Yep.
It's gonna be way different, right? And it's gonna be different for both. Because now with us with Lando with that crashing his teammate in the bag, Oscar is also probably gonna have to have that in his psyche as well. If he goes up against Lando, right?
Yeah. I don't think this will be the last time we see them come together this year. I think we're gonna see. I genuinely think we're gonna, because again, there's only 3 of them in the championship fight, and given that he's gonna have to play catch up, he's 22 points behind. I think if he gets in another situation like that, he's gonna go. I think he's still gonna be aggressive. He's still gonna try and put a move on Oscar. I just think that this time he's gonna be a bit more calculated. He's gonna learn from this. And I think, and you know, it's also one of the reasons why I'm willing to, like I said, I can see what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in a race you saw that aggression from him. He finally looked like he realized, yo, I'm racing for a championship here. I can't be timid. I'm going to have to be ballsy and go for moves that I would have normally kind of like, second thought. No, he's going to be in a position whereby he's still going to have to be, think twice about certain things, but I don't think it's going to be that frequent anymore.
Yeah.
So I can so whilst, he deserve a bit of lashing for that as well. Cause like you said, it was never gone. I don't even want to go on the idea of saying it was never going to work, because we can only say that because it didn't come off.
That's Jensen Button and Lewis 2012, right?
No, 2011. Now, the difference here is Jensen Button was looking in his left mirror and could see Lewis pulling up side of him, and he just kept on moving to his left. So I don't think that's the same. I think Jensen Button knew what he was doing here.
Okay.
So it's a completely different thing. But again, it's good for the sport what happened. I think it's good because it's now spices it up. It gives
the lightning never strike twice at the same place, but it did for McLaren, right?
Yeah. And what's that? And it's 14 years apart. 14 years apart. So yeah. That's cool still.
But yeah, that's it on Lando and Oscar. Let's see how Lando. What's going to be key is how Lando moves on from this.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it's like what, not to want to go out because we need to move on. It's like what you said, right? We got to treat it as a separate incident. But in Lando's mind, it's not a separate incident. He's lumping it back there. It's like, in Lando's mind, he's not treating it as a separate incident. He's probably looking like, man, I messed up in qualifying
again, and I messed up in the race. Yeah.
So so how he moves on is gonna tell you, he's gonna test his mental toughness.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, even myself, question his mental fortitude, right? And this is gonna be like a test. This is a test for Lando. How does Lando Norris moves on
from this
incident?
Yeah. And just to quickly, one last point. He couple years ago he made a statement about Lewis, saying, it's easy for Lewis out front to win. He doesn't really have to race anybody or whatever, etc. Something along those lines. And I think recently kind of like backtrack on that. And what we're seeing now is, can you perform when the light is brightest? Because when you're at the back of the grid, the light isn't the brightest when you're at the back of the room. It's when you're literally right at the front of the room. That's where the light is brightest. So now you're at the front, your mistakes are more amplified, right? You're more subjected to criticism from everybody. Everything you do is now under a microscope. How can you deal with that? And again, this is where the likes of the Lewis Hamiltons, the Max Verstappens, the Schumachers, the Hackinens, the Prost, that's where these guys excel. They can deal with that spotlight. And now the spotlight is on Lando. Can you deal with it?
Hey man, everyone, when you're at the top of the hill, everyone thinks it's easy to climb until it's their time to climb.
There you go. Getting to the top. And the thing is, it's hard work getting to the top of the hill, but it's even quicker getting to the bottom because you can just drop off at like that. So
you could get there, but are you consistent enough to stay there?
Stadium, yeah.
That's when the hard work starts.
So yeah, so whilst everybody's giving him a hard time, I look at it like, you know what? I'm gonna let him off this time because I can see what he was trying, and I think if it had worked, everyone here would be saying, "Yo, what a move from Lando Norris."
And from and that's your take. On my take is that I'm just taking all the mistakes so far this year and lumping it into one because I think they tie into each other, and I'm like, get it together, bro.
Yes, he has no what. So we have 14 main races, and I think we have 3 more sprint races. So in total, we probably have 15 races left for the season. He has 15 races to recover 22 points. Can he do it? Let's see.
Yeah, let's see what he comes out. So yeah, Kimi becomes the 3rd youngest podium winner, podium finisher.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which brings him alongside Max Verstappen and let's forget his name, Lance Stroll, because I think Lance Stroll did what is in, was it Monza 2017? Was his first podium in the actual reign. Yeah, I think it was Monza. Where is he? Lance Stroll. Podium. He has got, how many podiums does he have? He has 3 podiums. Yeah. His first was Baku 2017. Oh, it was 2018. He was on the and he was on the podium in 2020. Okay, so 2017 Baku he did 3rd, and 2020 in Sakir and Monza he was also 3rd. So yeah, and again for Kimi, that was a brilliant drive from him this weekend. You know what I mean? Yep. Took Oscar off the line. Took him going into the infamous, I'm going to start calling that the Lewis Vettel corner, 2019 corner. Yeah. Took him going into that, and he kept the position. He never looked at any point he was flustered. And I tell you what, though, Max had to work for that 2nd place because the 2 pit stops Max did, right? On each of those pit stops, if he hadn't pitted on that lap, Kimi would have passed him. So he pitted on the right time. And on his last stop, Kimi pitted, I think a lap after, and he held the lead, held his position. And he kept Max honest that entire time because I think the biggest Max lead got up to was about 2 seconds for that entire 2nd stint. So he drove a really, really good race. And, we already knew that the kid had all the talents and everything in the world to succeed, and I think we're starting to see it. And he's never driven at this track.
The only thing he didn't have those hammer time laps when Max pitted.
Yeah, well, I don't think he would have had them anyway because his tires were probably dead by then. Max came out and hit the his outlap pretty hard, which basically, let him keep that position. So Kimi.
It's good that he got some confidence back after. Not that his confidence was gone. It's good that he got a good result after
the 3 non-scores in the triple header. You know what I mean? So hats off to him, and I think hats off to Mercedes as well because they just came back. With a bang this weekend. But as we said in the beginning, was this track specific? Let's wait and see. We'll know in Austria next weekend, which again that's going to be altitude and it's probably going to be really hot. let's see what happens. But because I'm definitely I've got coins invested in Kimi, because I think he's the real. I think he's the real deal. He's definitely someone that, has a bright future in the sport.
Yeah, he's got a very bright. So moving on to the next thing, man, I don't even know if I want to spend much time on this. Red Bull lodging another protest against a team that wins. Like, this is not even. This is a non-discussion.
No, it's not. I don't think so, man. Because I think
because people are used to Red Bull doing this. Like, it's one of these ones. It's a Red Bull thing. Whenever anyone is winning, or whenever someone comes up with something innovative, they try to. They just always lodging some complaining. Like it's just become tired.
Because
it's just tiresome.
Yeah, it is, but at the same time, it's as Total Wolf said, it's a bit petty, because what they lodged, actually it's 2 complaints they lodged, right? And they withdrew one of them. And the one that I think they were arguing against, was unsportsmanlike conduct from George. And apparently what they're trying to say was, because George, the whole suddenly break thing, like George suddenly braked so Max could pass him, and then he went on the radio to complain, hoping that they give Max a penalty. And I'm like, sorry, what are we talking about? Unsportsmanlike conduct? And I think this is what I think they wanted to do. Because Oscar wasn't on the podium and Lando was out the race, if they had gotten the win, right? If actually no, it wouldn't really have benefited them, because actually it would have, because they would have gotten more. Yeah, because if say they threw George out the race, right? Max would have gotten 25 points, Kimi 18, Oscar 15, right? So it's a 10-point swing for Max to Oscar, right? But when you look at the gap, Oscar finished 4th, so it's only a 6-point swing. So it would have. So for him, it's a plus. It would have been a +4 swing in his favor if they were to happen. But I thought, and the thing is, it took them damn near 5 hours.
Yeah, that's version.
To come up with a decision, and you're like, so the people who have won the race, celebrated, and all these things are sitting there waiting. Okay, when is it gonna be made official? It was really petty, and factor that in with Christian Horner now complaining to that. I think why he did it as well, because he later came out and said that he spoke to the race director over the weekend, saying that he feels like other drivers are going to try and goad Max into doing something, so he picks up a point to get that race ban, right? And he said George is coming, because George made some comment after qualifying, because remember after qualifying it was him and Max on the front run, and they were like ask him about the run down to first turn 1, and he's like, well, I've got a few points on my license that I can play with, basically meaning, well, I can risk it and I'm willing to take some points if it goes wrong. Max can't do that, because if Max risks it and it causes a collision or whatever it is, he gets up any point, he's getting a race ban. So he's saying, they're trying to goad him, and based on what George said, that's pretty much whatever he said. And I'm just like, yo, I don't. And again, this is why I don't like them as a team, because for them they have this sense of entitlement. And
the thing is, Red Bull knows how to rain on people's parade, bro.
Yeah,
they know how to make things about it, because they just ruined it for Mercedes, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have this sense of entitlement about them.
And the reason why they keep doing it is because there's no penalties for it. There's nothing to say. I said it in one of the earlier pods, right? If you're a team that's gonna just jump out the window and do stupid things, right? Stupid protests, there has to be a consequence.
Yeah. And right. Zach Brown said the same thing. Say
just like in sports, you review the play in the NFL, and you lose a timeout.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's similar to football. Okay, in football, like Premier League, right? If somebody gets a red card and you appeal it and you review it, they can also increase your ban. You know what I mean? Because they realized, well, it was a frivolous thing you did. And that's what Zach Brown said. These things, because they were complaining about the McLaren car they've been complaining about the McLaren car the whole entire year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're raising all these protests, and he's saying, look, if you're just gonna raise protest after protest just for the sake of it, there should be a punishment applied.
Yeah, there has to be. There should be. I said this like earlier on in the year. There should be, because now we realize that Red Bull just does it because they want to.
Yeah.
A team wins because guess what? You have to remember, Red Bull is all about marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brand. It's all about. So Mercedes wins, Red Bull protests. Guess what? Guess who's in the headlines?
Red Bull.
Red Bull. So they know what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even this team knows, even losing, they know how to make themselves the headline.
Yeah. And
if you don't put a penalty in for stuff like that,
they won't stop.
They won't stop.
And it goes back to if you remember the DTS, the when they released DTS in 2021 for the 2020 season, they called Christian Horner. There was a clip of Christian Horner saying, I think he was telling Toto Wolff that the only reason why they lodged a complaint for the DAS system was simply because they wanted to annoy them. They wanted to get underneath their skin. And I'm like, so you're basically, the rules that are there, you're just basically using them for your own fun, basically. There's no actual merit to what you're trying to do, other than to just try and irritate people. And again, that's kind of like, yo, what we're doing here. Going back to what Toto said at the premiere of the F1 movie yesterday, it's petty. It's petty. That was never, and it's even worse when you consider that Max in his interview after the race pretty much said, yo, whatever, that's nothing. So who decided to lodge that protest? Because that sure as hell wouldn't be Max. Because Max pretty much dismissed the whole thing as like, please, that's nothing. Whatever. It is what it is. Let's move on. So somebody in that team decided, we're going to lodge a protest. Who?
Yeah, it's
stupid.
Like, they need to do something like what other sports do. If you lodge just a frivolous, just because you can, you need to have some form of consequence to deter you from doing stuff like that.
Yep, definitely.
Unless you see something that's really, really there, because guess it, you're wasting people's time.
And it's not. And the thing is, it's not the first protest they've lodged this year, and some of them have been against Mercedes. So, like, yeah, come on, man. Let's move on. Let's just stop. Yeah,
so it tells you a lot.
Yeah, stop doing that, man, and just let's move on, man. And again, like you said, I think it's a sense of entitlement for them. If somebody comes out with an innovative idea, that must be illegal. Like, why must it be illegal?
Yeah, but let's say move on from Red Bull. Let's touch on the Lewis situation, right? Got a damaged floor again.
Man hit a hedgehog.
R.I.P. to the hedgehog.
R.I.P.
I'm surprised Peter ain't out just yet.
Hey. I mean, Peter has come after him a couple of times, man. So I'm definitely surprised they haven't.
But yeah, man. Another damaged floor, another what could have been, right? And there's not even much to say on that. It's just a damaged floor. It was losing what, 20 points a downforce? Yeah,
they said it was 20 points of downforce, which works out to about half a second a lap. But I saw this guy I follow. He does a lot of data analysis about the races, lap times, etc., etc. And even with the damaged floor, Lewis' lap time was still comparable to Charles. They were pretty much the same lap times, but then I read something today, that says, because Lewis was even battling a braking issue in the race. At one point, he was saying, the brake pedal is going long, etc. So they had to switch the brake balance. I think for more 50. I think they switched it more rearwards than front. I can't remember which way they switched it, because he was complaining that he can't stop the car. Then you heard Charles had a similar issue where he had to lift on course for how many meters. So for Ferrari, it was pretty much I think it was literally a mediocre weekend, and reveal that basically Ferrari are the fourth fastest car on the grid. And the only time they'll ever get above that is, I think, if Mercedes, well, more so George, is off the boil, then Ferrari can probably sneak in. But if George and Mercedes is on form, I don't see them getting past them. I saw Fred, and then you have Fred, the team principal, who is just like, yo, you already know where I stand with Fred Vassor. I've said point blank, I don't think he's the man for this job. I think the Ferrari job is too big for him. It needs someone. Yeah. It needs someone of a bigger character, a bigger standing, somebody. And whilst the argument is Ferrari won't give over full control, whatever, but okay, if they're not going to do that, but it still needs someone who is more, who commands more respect, who command more respect from the people who he's overseeing. And again, to me, there's only two people. It's either Toto Wolff or Christian Horner. Toto Wolff is not going to leave a team that he owns to go work for somebody else. So that's never going to happen. So it's only going to be Christian Horner. The rumors are that Ferrari approached him and they turned him down. But
I don't believe it.
What?
I don't believe Christian Horner could fix Ferrari. We had this conversation over the space. Ferrari needs to get fixed culturally.
Ferrari. But that's what I'm saying. You never know. Someone like Christian Horner could come in and change the culture.
I doubt it, because the thing is, you look at Ferrari, or they operate. Even when you read books about Ferrari and how Ferrari was formed, and how Ferrari, even Enzo Ferrari's start process was right. They cannot afford anyone that comes in to seem bigger than life. Like bigger than Ferrari.
True, because did they not?
Adrian Newey comes in, because guess what? If Adrian Newey had gone to Ferrari,
mm-hmm.
everyone would have talked about. They wouldn't have said. It would have been, the story would have been, it's an Adrian Newey car.
Mm-hmm.
Ferrari cannot afford that.
Yeah, but actually, I disagree with that, and I'll tell you why I disagree with that. Yeah. If Lewis goes on and wins a championship, say Lewis goes on next year and wins a championship, who do you think they're going to talk about more? Because the argument, the conversation then will be Lewis returns Ferrari to prominence.
That makes more sense, because ultimately you need a driver to drive a Ferrari.
Yeah, but what I'm saying here is, but the conversation, the argument wouldn't be about Ferrari. The Ferrari wouldn't be getting the main headline.
It would have been, it would have been Ferrari wins in a car that Ferrari made, not in an Adrian Newey car.
But what's the difference? Because
different, because one is a driver, so no matter how good or bad, you need a driver, so it's always separate.
No, but right? what I'm saying here is the conversation with the argument will be, because they signed Lewis to come in and lead them to the promised land, and if Lewis comes in, and achieves that, the conversation would be Lewis. Listen to what I said. It's not Ferrari returns to prominence. It will be Lewis Hamilton returns Ferrari. So Ferrari will be the second subject in that headline. The first,
they would care about that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So how is it different to say Adrian Newey returns Ferrari to prominence?
No, that's not what it would be.
But what would it be?
Lewis Hamilton wins in an Adrian Newey car. That's where the difference is. Because it would be Lewis Hamilton, which you expect the driver. You need a driver to drive.
Yeah, but so Adrian Newey. But it's a Ferrari. Does it matter if it's
Yeah, but when you read, you gotta understand, Ferrari's whole thing is that it's red, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need a driver. It doesn't matter if it's Lewis Hamilton or Max.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need a driver to win in a Ferrari.
Yeah.
But the conversation would be, it's more of an Adrian Newey thing that it is a Ferrari thing. That's where the issue comes in.
I don't get that.
Because no matter who makes the car, you need a driver, right?
Yes.
If they say Lewis Hamilton brings Ferrari to prominence, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't want to be the article to read is that Adrian Newey. So it's not going to be, Ferrari's not going to be the main thing in terms of the car product. Mm-hmm. It's going to be Adrian Newey.
But it's the same. But it's going to be the same if it's Lewis.
No,
that's what I'm.
Because it's a Ferrari product, the name is going to be.
But it's still going to be a Ferrari product. It's just that Adrian Newey is the designer. It's no different.
What Ferrari's problem is.
I don't.
Because it's going to be Lewis, Adrian Newey, then Ferrari. That's bad for Ferrari.
How is that bad for Ferrari?
Because the conversation is always gonna be when you talk. Even now, when you talk about Red Bull, people talk about those cars being Adrian Newey's car than being Red Bulls. Everyone talks about Adrian Newey when it comes to Red Bull cars.
Yeah.
Ferrari cannot have everyone talking about Adrian Newey when it comes onto a Ferrari car. The product, right? That's made by Ferrari, right? That's where the difference is. The driver, it doesn't matter.
So hold on. All right. So if Loic Serra, who's now at Ferrari, I think I don't know if he's the technical director.
Yeah.
And he's working on the 2026 project. So if he builds a car that wins the championship, they still can say Loic Serra design.
No one knows Loic Serra, bro.
What?
Adrian Newey is the man. No one knows Loic Serra apart from us that's in F1.
But again, it's pretty much the same. It's the same for Newey. The only people who really knew Newey are people who knows F1.
We're talking about larger than life. When you talk about Adrian Newey, right? No one is going to say it's a Loic Serra car, but people will say it's an Adrian Newey car. That's the difference. That's where the difference comes in.
I don't know. I'm going to disagree with that one.
When you talk about car designers in F1, who comes to mind?
Obviously, Adrian Newey comes to mind.
There you go.
Yeah.
Everyone else who knows Loic Serra. No one talks about it's a Loic Serra.
Well, Loic Serra isn't really a designer, so that's a different conversation.
So that's what I'm saying to you. You talk about larger than life, and I'm saying Ferrari's issue is that they do not want a larger than life designer to say, well, it's an Adrian Newey car, then Ferrari. That's where the issue comes in.
I don't know. I don't see the difference to that, to them saying it's an Adrian Newey car to someone saying, okay, you only won because you had Lewis Hamilton in the car.
It is a difference because the car, you give them the product. It's a car. It needs a driver, right? So if you could build the greatest car, if there's not a driver, so there's going to be a story with a driver. It could be friggin' Nico Rosberg. It's going to be, hey, Nico Rosberg won in a Ferrari for many years, right? But with someone like an Adrian Newey in a car, it's going to be Ferrari's going to be third in line. They're going to mention the driver who brought it to prominence. They're going to mention Adrian Newey because he's the biggest designer ever. Oh no, Adrian Newey did it for this team. Adrian Newey did it again. So Ferrari is third.
I don't know.
And you got to remember, it's the Italian pride in Ferrari that won't allow them to do that.
But hold on. But being third or second in line in a conversation really does make a difference because you're not first in that conversation.
Do you follow the history? Do you understand what Ferrari is?
Yeah, no, I'm not disputing. I know what Ferrari, but what I'm saying here is the storyline will always be Ferrari will not be the first name mentioned in the storyline. It will always be either Lewis, the driver, or the design. If in the case of Lewis and
as I said, the driver is okay for them.
Okay. What if it's not Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari? Right? Say it's Charles.
Nico Rosberg, it's the same thing. Charles wins.
But again, but you see what I'm saying here. And even it doesn't really matter which way you swing it. The first thing you're going to mention will be mentioned. It won't be Ferrari in the tagline. It would be.
That's not their issue. That's not the issue.
So then,
the issue is the car, the product that they're creating. They do not want the product to say it's an Adrian Newey thing. That's their issue.
So then, what are they going to advertise?
Right.
So what should it read?
Right. That's their issue. You know, it's for whatever car they come back and they win with. It's not to say, well, it's Adrian Newey.
So what
Ferrari does? They would not allow that.
Well,
which is why that's the issue, bro. With the car, if you build a car, you're gonna need a driver. So it's okay to say Lewis. You could say Thanos won for Ferrari after how many years? It doesn't matter to them. But what they don't want is Thanos won in an Adrian Newey built Ferrari. That's where the issue comes in for them.
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on that one because either way you look at it.
Only agree if you don't. Have you read books on Ferrari? Have you seen them? That's how they are. If you mention something when you talk about Ferrari, the product, if it's not solely Ferrari you're talking about, you're coming in a cardinal sin, bro. That's where the issue comes in. If it's a situation, say for instance, Adrian Newey was the Adrian Newey that designed great car, but he wasn't the superstar Adrian Newey, and he was just low key. No one really knows. He's just a guy that names that gets mentioned. Fine, that's okay for Ferrari. But you're talking about Adrian Newey built Ferrari car. They don't want that, bro. because they think that Adrian Newey is the common denominator. No, they don't want Adrian Newey to be the common denominator in the winning car. Ferrari has to be the common denominator, not the designer.
I don't
That's
know.
where they're having their issue.
I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with that, but because either, like I say,
if you know anything about Ferrari, if you follow their history, you would know the way they speak about Ferrari. Nothing can be bigger than Ferrari, especially the product that they're creating.
But then if nothing can be bigger than Ferrari, then why you bring Lewis Hamilton in?
Lewis is not bigger than Ferrari, bro.
But then Adrian Newey is not bigger than Ferrari, then,
right? So you still, Neil. They need a driver. It doesn't matter who. They need a driver. The driver is always going to get mentioned, which is why there's two things. There's a drivers' championship. There's a constructors' championship.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter what they say about the driver. Cool. We need a driver. It could be Carlos Sainz. It could be Daffy Duck. That doesn't matter. The product, which is the Ferrari product that we're going to put on track, it has to be predominant. Ferrari got to be the common denominator in its existence, not a single person.
I'm not sure I grasp this or follow this, because you said no one can be bigger than Ferrari, and like I'm saying, in this situation, Adrian Newey can't be isn't bigger than Ferrari.
But the product is going to be associated with Adrian Newey more than Ferrari built a car that wins again. So it's going to be Lewis Hamilton wins in an Adrian Newey built Ferrari. That's where the issue comes in for Ferrari. If it was Lewis Hamilton wins again in a Ferrari, that's fine by them, because you need a driver. You can't win without a driver, right? But to have a third person in there before the Ferrari brand saying that, oh, this guy's Ferrari cannot afford that, which is why they're in the situation, because they will not let that go.
Okay.
Ferrari will not let that go, bro.
Okay, cool. All right.
That's the issue with Ferrari. So culturally, Ferrari, the Italian pride in Ferrari is the reason why they're not winning. They're not willing to give that up for someone else to get the praise off on the Ferrari product.
All right.
That's always how they've been.
All right, cool. Fine. Right. So another thing over the weekend, going into the weekend, there was this rumor that Fred Vassor, because his contract ends this year, but there's no talk so far that we're aware of his contract being renewed. And there's also a rumor linking, I can't remember the guy's name, the guy who runs the Le Mans program, who basically just won his third Le Mans in a row. He could possibly replace Fred. And the funny thing is, he was actually, this guy, I can't remember his name, he was actually asked to lead the Ferrari team even before they took on, I believe it was Arriva Bene. And he said, no, he turned it down. Do you think after winning the third Le Mans that he might, if they approach him again, he might say, okay, yeah, he wants to take on the task? Because again, running a Le Mans team, winning Le Mans and Formula One are two different things. Formula One is a much more difficult category to perform in and to win in. What do you think? You think Fred will be there next year?
So there's two guys. On the Le Mans program, there's two guys. Antonelli Coletta.
That's the guy.
Ferdinando Canizo.
No, the Coletta guy. I think he's the head of the Le Mans program. He's the one they put in place.
The thing is, right, if you're a person who knows to win, it doesn't matter where you go, right? Because remember, it's not a one person thing, right? It's about bringing a team of people together for for our sole purpose, right? For our sole goal, which is to win. And if you've got that type of pedigree, it doesn't matter where you go, right? Which is why in business, a lot of times you might find someone that comes over from broadcasting to sports to run a soccer team, a football team, and because he knows how to put the right pieces together to make that team wins. And you're like, how did that? Because he's not the one training the players, but he knows how to put the right places on the chessboard.
Yeah. Because here's the thing, right? Going back to what you just said. Because this is Fred's third year. And during that time, he's been recruiting people. He's got like Sarah from Mercedes. He's got some people over from Red Bull and some other people. So he's slowly putting the pieces together. Do you think he should be given more time then to try and will, given that he's slowly putting the pieces in place, do we think he should probably get up until next year? And then if the 2026 project doesn't deliver, then you show him the door. Because if you look at it, the likes of Arriva Bene and Binotto before him have pretty much been ditched after 3 years.
I could see if they fire Fred. I could see why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's and I can as well, because he keeps talking about we can take the positives from this. One of the things he mentioned over the weekend, Charles did a purpose sector 1 in qualifying. Okay, that's not a positive.
Not even only that. If Ferrari ditches him and he's next year?
Yeah.
Not to be there next year? I could see why, because the situation is they're probably looking at the progress from last year to this year, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
So he regressed
massively.
So I could see if they put him, because they probably was like, okay, you come in the first year, then you're gonna put the pieces together in the second year. This is why second year, right? Or just third year?
Third.
Okay, so your first 2 years you put the pieces together, right? Well, the first year the car last year finished second in the constructors, right? And won races.
Mm-hmm.
So you regressed on the third year. So that's in any business, that's the reason to get fired, bro.
Yeah, because I've said it, and it's very likely they don't win a race this year.
Yeah, and
we've not seen anything from them to give you any confidence that they're going to win a race this year.
Yeah, so yeah, they got all the reason to fire him. I don't think if he was making progress, year on year, whereas like last year car came into this year and it's still competitive, even if it doesn't win the championship. If it came into this year being competitive like it was last year, okay, we could see, okay, that makes sense. You're still competing, but to regress this way, bro, yeah, you should get fired. In any business, you get fired, especially if it's a performance-based business. Because
they were what? They finished last year 14 points behind McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. They've now fallen to third. They've got McLaren's on 374 to 183. They're 191 points.
Yeah, that's all reason to get fired, bro.
191 points. And there was a point he talked about, the second in the championship. And I'm like, well, you're only second in the championship because Red Bull only have one driver. And Kimi had that bad run, that no score in the 3 races, the triple header. That's the only reason why you're second. No, you're falling behind Mercedes in the championship. What's that? They're now 16 points behind Mercedes, and only what? 16 and only 21 ahead of Red Bull. Yeah, Red Bull only have one driver.
Red Bull's gonna overhaul them by the end of the season. But this is it, right? To go back to the original question with the guy that's running the
Le Mans team,
the Le Mans program, right? So this is how you have to gauge things, right? Whilst Formula One is harder to win, and it's Antonio Coletta, let's just call him by his name, Antonio Coletta. Even though F1 is a whole different ballgame, right? You still have to look at the fact that Ferrari came in, hypercar, right? Not competing for years.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy put a team together and got a 3-peat.
Mm-hmm.
So even though F1 is out, you still got to look at, say, this guy came in with a clean sheet of paper, right? And he 3-peated for them. So the guy looks like he knows how to win, and you have to look at that, right? Because we all know, no matter where you go, motorsport is a competitive thing. No matter the category, because you can only gauge yourself off your competitors in whatever categories you're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you're in Le Mans and you 3-peated, right, and you're working for an organization who's struggling over a year in F1, it's only right they're going to look at you and be like, well, this guy Seems like he knows how to win.
Yep.
So how about putting him over here with this project? Because he already did everything he needed to do over here. What else for him? Is either we put him over here, another F1 team is probably going to pick him up and be like, hey, this guy did this in Le Mans. Whilst it's not F1, but it's still a competitive thing. Because you have to remember, bro, the thing with Le Mans is what a lot of people don't understand. When you could run a car for 24 hours, that has to be bulletproof on reliability, right? You have to be. So there's a lot of things that goes into.
And not just that. You're talking about also, focus and everything. Not make any mistakes and so on. I look. Yeah. And again, this goes back to what I've always said, and people might not agree with me. Look, Fred is not the man for Ferrari. This is too big a job for Fred. I just don't see, because running a GP2 team is not the same as running a Formula 1 team. And that's the only success Fred has had in Formula 1, running a GP2 team. Because he ran Art GP. Was it Art GP? Because he was Lewis's team boss at Art GP when he won the GP2 championship. And I believe, was he there when Charles was there as well? I can't remember. But either way, running a Formula 1 team is a completely different kettle of fish. And given how important Ferrari is to Formula 1 and to Italy, I just don't know. And the pressure of not winning for coming up damn near 2 decades, and to add to that pressure, you signed Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, to answer your question, yes, they should bring the guy from Le Mans. If that's a thing, yeah, they should bring him. The guy three-peated.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta bring him.
I mean the last
everything. What else do you want from him?
And I mean who's the last team to three-peat? Did Toyota three-peat? I know Audi dominated for a while, then Porsche. Did Porsche win?
Yeah, Porsche won.
Yeah, Porsche won.
Mark Webber.
Yeah. So again, like you said, he won the first year. No one expected him to win the first year. Probably thought it was either going to be Toyota or Porsche that won it. They came in, they won it, defended it. Granted, some things have changed, but either way, they're still three-peat. So, I don't know. Let's see what happens. But the pressure is on Ferrari to deliver, because you signed Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, you signed Lewis Hamilton, and Lewis Hamilton Formula 1 clock is running out. So, yeah.
It's either next year or never, bro.
But on just some quick news. We're not really gonna delve on it too long. The Renault CEO Luca Di Maio finally resigns. Which probably might be some good news for Alpine going forward. But let's see how that one pans out. Derek Warwick, race steward, got suspended for this race weekend because he made some comments to a gambling website, where he gave his opinions on, who Lewis deserved in the championship, eighth championship, and he gave some comments about Red Bull and Max as well, which I found that really funny that they suspended him, given that Johnny Herbert was fired for giving similar opinions for the same betting organization. But Derek Warwick should have been removed from stewarding years ago when he made a comment about Max being the great white hope in 2016, and then when he was confronted about it, basically lied and said he didn't recall ever saying that, whatever it is. So, and he was also part of the stewarding crew which will forever be the black mark of Formula 1, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix 2021. So, a lot, and the last 2-1 broke today. Again, it's obviously it's a different sport. The number 50 Ferrari got disqualified from Le Mans. Where did they finish? Did they finish third? Fourth. Oh, okay, so they didn't really. So they got disqualified. Apparently, the disqualification was because there was 4 bolts missing from the rear wing, which meant that it flexed more than it needed to do. And them Le Mans guys, they don't play. There's no gray area for them. It's just black and white, straight up.
And that's the thing. It was deflection of 52 millimeter, far above the 15 millimeter.
So that's what 30. It flexed what 37 millimeters more than it needed to do. Yeah, that's a yeah. You were always gonna get disqualified for that. The last one before we go rate the race. What you give it?
Give it like a 6.5, 6.5.
I don't think it was really that exciting, to be honest, up until because there wasn't really that much overtaking going on. I think, yeah, I'd probably give it a 6. Yeah, I'd give it a 6.
Once again, if you want to follow us, the Grand Prix Project Pod on X, the Grand Prix Project Podcast on Instagram, right?
And we also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel.
That's on YouTube.
Same name.
Right, so, and if you want to follow the big bro, it's Thanos
876.
Yeah, Thanos 876, which is spell it out for them.
It's 7 HANOS 876, or just look for Fire. Anyway, it's a Fire on Twitter. That's where you can find me because I'm always blazing.
Yeah, which is when he says 7, the number 7.
Yep.
THANOS 876. Yeah, and wherever you see Thanos, you see me in the comments and you figure out that's me. All right, so thank you once again for listening to the Grand Prix Project Podcast, the Canadian Grand Prix review. Appreciate y'all. Thank you all. Have a great day.
And we out.
Thank you for listening to the Grand Prix Project Podcast.